I wanted to be president because I believe that my background and experience and my perspective and point of view would be helpful to get America back on track, to keep America the economic powerhouse it's been and the champion of freedom here and around the world. I happen to believe that America is on a course of decline if it continues with the policies we've seen over the last couple of decades. And that we need to take a very different course, returning to more fundamental principles, if you will, returning to the economic foundation that's necessary to keep America prosperous and give our people the opportunity for success that they have long believed is part of the American experience. I love my dad. It's fair to say that I probably would not have thought of politics had I not seen my mom and dad involved in politics. I would have just assumed that it's done by other people, and the people like me who are in business don't get involved in politics. But I realized that no, you can move from the world of private enterprise into the political sphere and do so successfully. But my decision to run for office was really in no way a response to my father's campaign. It was instead a recognition that by virtue of a series of fortunate events, I was in a position to run for president and potentially to become president. And I felt if I didn't do so, given that opportunity, I would have been letting down my country, my family, and the future. Well, we had been through it, and I knew how grueling the process was, and I felt that there may be others who could be more effective in actually winning and then getting America on course. I thought, for instance, if someone like Jeb Bush were to have run, that he might well be able to do what was necessary to get the country on track. I got into this out of a sense of obligation to the things I believed in and love for the country, but not because it was something I desperately wanted so that I could feel better about myself. But that it was not my motivation for the race. Well, we had been through it, and I knew how grueling the process was, and I felt that there may be others who could be more effective in actually winning and then getting America on course. I thought, for instance, if someone like Jeb Bush were to have run, that he might well be able to do what was necessary to get the country on track. I got into this out of a sense of obligation to the things I believed in and love for the country, but not because it was something I desperately wanted so that I could feel better about myself. But that it was not my motivation for the race. Again, going back to whether I was the person most likely to defeat the president and get the country on track, and I recognized that by virtue of the realities of my circumstances, there were some drawbacks to my candidacy for a lot of Republican voters. One, because I had a health care plan in Massachusetts that had been copied in some respects by the president, that I would be tainted by that feature. I also realized that being a person of wealth, that I'd be pilloried by the president as someone who was, if you use the term today, was in the 1%. Being Mormon would obviously be a challenge for some evangelical voters. I didn't know whether that would persist or whether that would go away during the primaries. I think it was Stuart Stevens who said, our party is more Southern and you're from the North. It's more evangelical and you're a Mormon, and it's more populist and you're a rich guy. This is going to be an uphill fight. And so, I didn't want to get into the race and make it more difficult for the leader of our party to beat the president. And so for me, the gating issue was, am I the person best able to defeat President Obama and therefore get the country on track? You know, there were times when I was solidly behind in the polls. As you say, Rick Perry, he was way ahead. And I was double digits behind Rick Perry for a while, and I looked at that and said, well, he'll probably get it, and I won't. Newt Gingrich, almost everybody was ahead of me at one time or the other. And so I'd look at those and say, well, right now they're more likely to get there, but I'm going to keep on battling, and I think I can pull out the victory. But if a betting person were deciding who was going to likely be the nominee at this point, they wouldn't bet on me. I've got more confidence in the outcome than they do, but I think for certainly if 2 or 3 weeks there, maybe longer, I thought it was more likely that Rick Perry would be the nominee, or even Herman Cain, or Newt Gingrich. Although I have to tell you that in the discussions I had with my senior staff, people like Stuart Stevens and Russ Schrieffer said, "Look, Newt is not going to be the nominee. I don't care what the polls say; he's not going to be the nominee." I was far less sanguine about that. There are so many things you could point to as being decisive. For instance, I had a lousy September, but I had a great October. For me, I realized this debate had 2 parts that were very important. One was that people would get a chance to see that I was not the person that President Obama had been portraying me as being. And that was and that the things he was saying about me and my positions were wrong. I mean, his ads, all right, were not accurate. All right, his ads were just pillaring me, saying things that were simply not true. And so I recognized this as a chance for people to see who I really am and to understand what I really believe. I just think people saw they saw the entire me as opposed to a 8-second clip of me. I watched, for instance, Paul Ryan at Meet the Press. I thought he had a wonderful interview just yesterday, and I thought it was just really superb. Then I see the press coverage, and of course, people are going to run a 22-minute clip. All right, they're going to run a tiny clip, and it's like, well, the clips are not the whole picture. The clips are just a little piece, and I don't want to say distorting, but they're not the full picture. And if people watched me out of the campaign trail and heard my stump speech, what I said in my stump speech was the same thing I said in that debate. It's the same. I'm the same guy, but in the debate they saw the whole thing. They didn't just get a little snippet. They saw the whole perspective of who I am, what I believe on issues. What had begun as people watching me with a interested eye had become instead more of a movement with energy and passion. The rallies we'd had with larger and larger numbers, and people not just agreeing with me on issues, but passionate about the election and about our campaign. That was something that had become palpable. We were looking at our own poll numbers,
right?
And there were 2 things that we believed. We believed that some of the polls that showed me not winning were just simply wrong, because they showed there was going to be more turnout from African American voters, for instance, than it existed in 2008. We said, no way, absolutely no way. That can't be, because this was the first time an African American president had run. 2008, that had to be the high point. This time, people, when we looked at the enthusiasm gap, African American voters were not as enthusiastic this time as they were 4 years ago. So there won't be as many African American voters that'll be voting for the president. We saw independent voters in Ohio breaking for me by double digits. And, as a number said, you can't lose Ohio if you win independent voters. All right, you're winning Republicans solidly, you're winning independents, and enthusiasm is overwhelmingly on our side. So, I was cautiously optimistic that, hey, that being the case, we're going to win. Florida, we thought we'd win Florida by 5 or 6 points. And again, looking at the independent voters and looking at enthusiasm, we had enthusiasm and we had independent voters. So those things said, okay, we have a real good chance of winning. Nothing's certain. don't measure the drapes, but I'd written an acceptance speech.
Right.
I spent some time on an acceptance speech. I had not written a concession speech called Matt and Rich Beeson, and we all got on the phone together and talked about what we were seeing. And it's like, this is not the picture we had expected. We're seeing much more turnout from groups that we thought would not be voting in as large numbers. That there's the enthusiasm gap is not playing out in who's voting as we might have expected. As I understood it and as they described it to me, not having heard it, it was saying, look, the Democrats have 47%, we've got 45%. My job is to get the people in the middle, and I've got to get the people in the middle. And I thought, well, that's a reasonable thing. I don't like to be talking about process.
Right.
I mean, as a candidate, you're always unwise to be talking publicly about how you're going to win and the calculation of, I'm going to go after this group. But one, you don't want your competition to know it. And number two, it can be very easily distorted or demagogue. So it's not a topic I'd talk about in public, but there's nothing wrong with it. They've got a block of voters. We've got a block of voters. I got to get the ones in the middle. And I thought that would be how it would be perceived as a candidate talking about the process of focusing on the people in the middle who can either vote Republican or Democrat. As it turned out, down the road, it became perceived as being something very different. Audience member, for the last 3 years, all of us have been told is, don't worry, we'll take care of you. How are you going to do it in 2 months before the elections to convince everybody you got to take care of yourself? And I'm saying, that isn't my job. In 2 months, my job is to get the people in the middle. But this was perceived as, he's saying 47% of the people he doesn't care about, or he's insensitive to, or they don't care, they don't take responsibility for their life. No. I'm saying 47% of the people don't pay taxes, and therefore they don't warm to our tax message. But the people who are voting for the president, my job isn't to try and get them. My job is to get the people in the middle, and I go on and say that. And anyway, so you take a look at the quote itself.
I'll
Read the full. Look at the full quote. But I realized, look, perception is reality. The perception is I'm saying I don't care about 47% of the people or something of that nature, and that's simply wrong. Clearly, that was a very damaging quote and hurt my campaign effort. I came back in October. I led in a number of polls. I think I could have won the presidency. We came remarkably close. Would I have liked to be closer? Absolutely. But the number of votes that could have swung to our side could have made a difference. You have to congratulate the president on a very good turnout effort. We were not competitive on our turnout effort with his. So could I have won? Absolutely. And did I recognize that coming as a person who has a great deal of wealth, that I, in that environment, would have that would be an obstacle? Yeah, I recognize that. But I thought I could get over it.